So to start us off, we're going to look at the age of the Idaho batholith. The Idaho batholith is kind of cool because it starts at the top of Idaho and works its way down. So it's actually got 3 lobes, but we're just going to focus on the Bitterroot lobe right now and the Atlanta lobe. So the Bitterroot lobe is 75 to 100 million years old, and the Atlanta lobe is 65 to 85 million years old. And we kind of figure out these ages just because they look at the plutons of the batholith and how those cut older rocks.
The Idaho batholith is a composite mass of granite plutons covering approximately 35,000 kilometers in central Idaho and the Panhandle. It is about 320 kilometers long by 120 kilometers wide and 8 kilometers thick. The Idaho batholith has 3 lobes: the Atlantic lobe, which is 100 to 75 million years old, the Bitterroot lobe, which is 85 to 65 million years old, and the Kanitzku lobe, which is 120 to 100 million years old. The Atlantic lobe and the Bitterroot lobe are located in central Idaho. The Kanitzku lobe is located in the Idaho Panhandle. The Idaho batholith is primarily composed of granite rocks. These granite rocks formed during the Cretaceous period.
Given that the Idaho batholith is a large fault encompassing most of central Idaho, it's given that it's home to many different geological features, including, but not limited to, many different rock types, which we'll go over later, diorite outcrops and dikes located in the southeastern part of the batholith, mountain ranges, which means it also includes many of the mountain features associated with that, such as horns, cirques, and arits, as well as lakes and water deposits, including Hellroaring Lake, an alpine lake which was covered in lab. This in turn also means that it includes straight and braided streams as well.
So the main type of rock that you're going to find in the Idaho batholith is actually granite. So they say that this granite formed from the Cretaceous compression event. And it's because the oceanic crust was subducting, so there was heat, there was pressure, and the slab was dewatering. And this caused the creation of magma chambers. And these magma chambers decided to rise to the surface, and that's kind of what gave us the Idaho batholiths. The magma chambers cooled really slowly, and like we've studied in this class, when magma cools slowly, it creates these crystals, and so that's what gives us granite, and that's what the Idaho batholiths are made out of.
So, a batholith is a type of pluton. Plutons are large igneous bodies that are formed deep in Earth's crust. They can be a cubic kilometer to hundreds of cubic kilometers big. There's different sizes and shapes, and that is due to how the magma rises through the crust. It either wedges open the overlying rock, or melts the surrounding rock, or breaks off large blocks of the surrounding rock, and then it sinks and melts into the magma. So we study plutons when uplift and erosion uncovers them or through mines. So as I mentioned, batholith is a type of pluton, and it is actually the largest pluton. They're irregular bodies of coarse-grained igneous rock, and they are 100 kilometers squared or larger. And they could be 10 to 15 kilometers deep. So very large, they take up lots of space. And they are coarse-grained, as I said. This is because they are intrusive from the magma, and it's through a slow cooling process deep underground. Batholiths are thick, horizontal, lobe-shaped bodies, and they also extend up to the crust from a funnel-shaped central region. Some natural resources related to the geology of this province is timber production and land and space for livestock production. Gold mining was the first natural resource here in the Idaho batholith. It's what began to bring people to the area. And lastly, tourism and recreation is very popular. with cities like Cascade, McCall, and Stanley. The Batholith is great for backpacking, hunting, backcountry skiing, and many different types of water sports. Some natural hazards related to the geology of this province could be earthquakes, river flooding, wildfires, landslides, or avalanches. This is because the Batholith is a mountainous region, so all of these hazards could occur.
During this period, an oceanic plate subducted underneath the North American continental plate. The oceanic plate was subducted into the lithosphere until heat and pressure caused the melting of the ocean plate. This heat and pressure of the water that was also subducting with the oceanic plate caused magma chambers to form. These magma chambers that formed ended up rising up to the surface through the lithosphere, and then these chambers melted some parts of the continental crust to form the granite that is in the Idaho batholith today. Along with granite, many other crystalline rock types and textures were formed during the melting and then cooling of the magma chambers. The rising of the magma chambers didn't just cause rocks to form, but also caused the uplift of large mountains at the Idaho batholith.
The topography of the Idaho batholith varies from region to region. As you can see, the Idaho batholith is made up of three different lobes, the main two in central Idaho being the Atlanta and Bitterroot lobes, and the one in the Panhandle called the Comiscue lobe. We will be discussing the topography of the two in central Idaho. The topography of the Bitterroot lobe extends about 450 miles with peaks up to 10,000 feet above sea level. One of the larger peaks is Scotts Peak, which is at 11,393 feet above sea level. The rates are very steep in these locations due to the colliding of the oceanic and continental tectonic plates and the more recent glacial movements. The Atlanta lobe has some peaks at similar elevations to the Bitterroot lobe, like the Thompson Peak at 10,751 feet, Decker Peak at 10,704, and Mount Kramer at 10,716 feet. All these peaks rise sharply as they were eroded into sharp, serrated ridges by glacial movements, as can be seen by this image of Mount Kramer. The western part of the Atlanta lobe is also strongly folded. A belt of metamorphic rock called the Middle Proterozoic Belt Supergroup separates the two aforementioned lobes.